One of the hardest things is pointing out mistakes to the ones you love. And for me, even in a small way, I love everybody on the planet and all living things. I've got no reason to not love them. In a way. Every person, every human being that I meet could be just a new friend. And you have to give everybody the chance to make changes for the best. And sometimes it's really hard to know which mistakes to pick out first. You know, for example, somebody might be doing something, sitting a funny way or something, and complaining about backache, and you might point them out that point out to them, and they can realise then, because you recognised in them the mistake. And I think a lot of times it does take a reflection to know the mistake. And a mirror doesn't always reflect. It only reflects when you're aware of it, when you focus your attention on the reflection. You know, there's this little scenario that I often think about as a key scenario. Say you go to visit somebody, a friend, not such a close friend, somebody you respect, and you walk into the room and you go to shake hands and say hello, and you notice that they've got a little bit of chocolate or something, some chocolate just on the lip there. Of course, the best thing to do is to say, you've got a bit of chocolate on the lip. But it's straight away, there's this irritation comes. Like, do you say hello first, shake hands, then say you've got the chocolate? Or do you say first you've got the chocolate on your chin? So then maybe you don't say anything. You think it doesn't matter. I don't mind if he's got chocolate on his chin. But then, the longer you leave it, the longer you wait, the harder it gets to say, oh, you've had chocolate on your chin for 10 minutes while we've been chatting. And they'd say, oh, why didn't you tell me? And they always go for the wrong side anyway. No, there, make a big thing out of it. And so, you have to kind of nip it in the bud, you know, hey, you've got chocolate on your chin, hello. Because if you don't say anything, you think, oh, you can get away with it and go home or something. But then another guest arrives while you're still there. And he sees your friend and says, oh, you've got chocolate on your chin. And your friend then turns to you and says, why didn't you tell me all this time I had chocolate on my chin? So it's like all of these thoughts compacted into a millisecond as you greet this person. You know, they're even lying, saying maybe they'd not had anything to eat, and you didn't want to say, I know you've had something to eat because you've got chocolate on your chin. So a whole myriad of different scenarios goes on at one time in such a millisecond. I mean, there's only really one answer to fall back on. It's like mental kung fu. And really it's like honesty and truth. Because nobody can say, oh yeah, you know, you can't go around telling the truth. On the other hand, you know, the truth is well overrated. You know, in one way, when I started these videos, I thought to myself, you know, this is a great way of just opening myself up, telling the truth to the whole world, all in one go, save myself time. But then I kind of thought, well, you know, it's quite boring if everybody just You know, every day, you know, another 10 truths of me. That's quite a selfish mission, really. You know, who gives a shit about my truths other than me, really? I mean, maybe you do, but they're your truths anyway. And I care about, you know, my truths and your truths, but they're not like paramount realities or anything. They're not that. Yeah, you know, like the things I'd done in the past or whatever, you know, I might have stolen a chocolate bar and thought it was a really big deal all my life, and thought that the woman I stole it off in the shop was like always thinking about me all the time, you know. And she'd probably obviously forgotten about it the next day. You know, might have always like kept me in her brain as a little thief or whatever. But then obviously as she got older, you know, well, as I got older, she'd realise, you know, if she even ever thought about me, that obviously it was just a childish phase. So, you know, it's long gone for other people, but my own truths and untruths are quite big in my soul. You know, there's been things I've spoken to people about in the past and says, oh, you know, they remember that time when, and they don't. You know, I'm thinking, hang on a sec, all these years I felt really bad about that, and then you didn't even notice. Or you was even pleased about it, you know. It's really hard to know. And it's really hard to know on these videos, you know. I noticed there's different ways of delivering messages on videos, you know. At this moment, I'm talking to you as a friend, I think. I'm not talking to myself, and I'm not talking to any particular that I know. So I'll take it that I'm talking to you, the viewer. You know, as if you was walking through the woods and that. Lost my thread, I think. Yeah, so yeah, it's about, yeah, you the viewer, that's right. You know, so if I say something, you know, obviously there's ways you can improve yourself, and there's things you're good at and things you do right and wrong and all these different things, and you know, you might consume certain foods that you think that you might should not consume, or smoking or drinking or anything. You know, for me it's about freedom. You know, everybody should be free to do what they want. You know, I often really go against routines, and I don't like clocks, and I try and deny rhythms. You know, I don't go to bed at the same time every day, and I don't wake up at the same time every day. But that's only my thing. You know, and I say to other people, you know, if you want to get up by an alarm clock or by the sun, that's fine. It's not even in a cynical way. It's just simply that when one thing becomes a dogma and not just a tool, you know, when something becomes the tool, then it's no longer useful.